Hello again, Grammie here, and it's time for me to read chapter 13. There are only 15 chapters in this book, so we're almost done. Now, the previous chapter made for a terrible day for poor Meg. Is chapter 13 going to be lucky for her? Let's find out. Chapter 13. A long, long day. The dream was quick and terrifying. Meg stood on a high place, a cliff, and looked down at glittering water. Far out from shore, a small red rowboat bobbed like a toy. One oar dangled in the water, the other floated away. The boat was empty, but someone she cared about had been in the boat just a minute before. As she stared, the water turned dark, and the boat began to move swiftly away. Meg screamed, a harsh, hurting sound that brought her mother rushing into the bedroom. "Meg, what in the world?" Meg struggled to sit up. Her throat ached with the sound she'd made. "You must have had a nightmare," her mother said. She sat on the edge of the bed. "You made a terrible sound, as if you were choking." "I'm okay now." Meg longed to hurl herself into her mother's arms. Instead, she lay back on the pillows. "I'm fine." "We're all having trouble sleeping, I guess." Her mother sighed and looked at Meg. "I'm sorry you have to go through all this," she said. "I'd like you and Bill to be happy all the time." She smoothed Meg's hair back from her face. "You probably think grown-ups understand their own feelings and have good reasons for what they do. I remember when I believed that. The truth is, we just do the best we can from day to day, and lots of times everything goes wrong. Then we're unhappy, and our children are unhappy too, and have nightmares." She shook her head. "What was it you dreamed, Meg?" "Nothing important, Mama." Meg pretended to yawn. "Just silliness. I'm fine now." Her mother sat for a minute longer, absent-mindedly smoothing the bed covers. "Well, good night then," she said at last. "You'll sleep all right now, won't you? I'll leave the lamp on if you want." Meg waited until she heard her mother's door close behind her. Then she slipped out of bed and tiptoed to her bureau. She wouldn't sleep again until she wrote down the dream. What could it mean? "Water," she wrote, crouched close to the open window. "A little red boat. Nobody in it. Whom did she know who might have been in the boat?" The answer was right there in Meg's head, as it had been from the moment she woke up. She shivered in spite of the warm night. "Dad is at Lake Superior," she wrote. "He's all alone up there." She imagined her father on the shore of the great lake, pushing off in the red boat. With a little moan, she closed the notebook and pressed her forehead against the window screen. In the quiet of the night, she could almost hear her heart thumping. It had happened again, this sudden, unwanted look into the future. And what was she to do about it this time? She switched off the lamp her mother had left on and went back to bed. There was nothing she could do tonight. She closed her eyes and willed herself to sleep, trying to ignore the insistent voice, the angry voice that whispered in the darkness. "You don't have to do anything. No one asked him to go away and live by himself. Why should you worry? He isn't worrying about what happens to you." It was raining when Meg woke the next morning. A hard splat of sound against the window her mother had closed some time during the night. Meg remembered the dream, and she saw again the darkening water and the helpless boat. She burrowed deeper under the sheet and tried to forget. "Meg, get up." Her mother opened the bedroom door. "Someone's on the phone for you." Reluctantly, Meg pushed back the covers and went out to the kitchen. It was Rhoda calling. She sounded sleepy. "I just wondered if you'd like me to walk to school with you." I don't have anything else to do this morning. What a good friend Rhoda was. Yesterday afternoon she'd listened sympathetically to Meg's half-tearful story of her meeting with Gracie. And this morning she'd realized Meg would be dreading school. You don't have to, Meg said. I'm okay. Thanks anyway. I wish I was going to classes, Rhoda said. I guess I could have if I'd said I wanted to. It didn't seem worth it for just a few days. We could have eaten lunch together today. I wish you were too, Meg said. But honestly, it's okay. I'll see you when I get home. Right. I guess I'll go to the branch library and apply for a card today. Rhoda paused as if searching for words. Don't let any of those creeps make you feel bad, she said with sudden violence, and hung up. The rain continued. Meg's mother made her carry an umbrella when she left the apartment. She tilted it against the wild, wet wind, while little umbrella islands bobbed past her. The walk was too short. As Meg opened the big front door, something dropped with a crash at her feet. It was her overnight case. She closed her umbrella and discovered Linda Bell standing in front of her. Several girls and boys stood nearby, watching curiously. I don't want your crummy junk lying around my house. Linda's voice was low and shaking with anger. From now on, you better keep out of my way, or you'll be sorry. A trickle of rain wiggled down Meg's spine. She felt like a clammy mess next to Linda, who was beautiful, even when she was having a tantrum. Why'd you do it? Linda demanded. Just tell me that one thing. Meg picked up the overnight case and took a deep breath. Gracie told me what happened, she said, but if you believe I called the police, you're wrong. I'd never do that. I'm sorry about your party. Thanks for bringing my overnight case. She tried to walk away, but Linda moved in front of her. I shouldn't have invited you. Her voice turned shrill. I know better next time, if there ever is a next time. My mother and father got called from the trip that they were on because of you, and I'm not going to be released anytime soon from being grounded forever. Because of you, you nasty snitch. She whirled around to the group gathered behind her. Let's get out of here, she snapped. I don't like the atmosphere. When they'd gone, Meg climbed the stairs to her locker on the second floor. Gracie's locker was next to hers, but Gracie had arrived early and was already hurrying down the hall to her first class. The sight of her friend running away hurt more than the scene with Linda. Gracie and Meg had gone to kindergarten together. They'd shared comic books, made scrapbooks of their favorite stars, traded clothes and secrets, spent long, lovely Saturday afternoons talking and dreaming about the things they'd do when they were older. Gracie was part of Meg's life. Losing her was like losing a sister. Meg crammed the overnight case into her locker and took out the books she'd need for her first 2 classes. Was it her imagination, or was everyone looking at her disapprovingly as she made her way through the crowded corridors? By the time she reached her home room, she was sure she'd be an outcast forever. It was a pleasant surprise to find her classmates laughing and to hear her name called as soon as she came through the door. Meg, over here! We're deciding what to take to the picnic tomorrow. Chris Svenson's face was glowing with enjoyment at being the center of a group. I thought it'd be fun if we each brought a different kind of food and shared it. Do you want to go along, or would you rather bring your own lunch? The class picnic. Meg wondered if her life would ever be calm enough so she'd stop forgetting things. I'll bring whatever you want, Meg said quickly. That's a really neat idea. After more discussion, it was agreed that Meg and 2 other girls would make sandwiches for 8 people. Chris offered to bake a cake, and the others would bring potato chips, pickles, carrot sticks, and apples. Soda and milk were to be provided by the school. Now, don't anyone forget what you're supposed to bring, Chris ordered. She leaned across the aisle to Meg just as Mrs. Cobble rapped for order. "We want to sit with me on the bus tomorrow?" she whispered. "I'll save you a seat." Meg nodded. Chris's invitation was the only sign that the other girls knew what had happened over the weekend. Before, Meg had always sat with Gracie on field trips. The day seemed endless. Meg ate lunch with Chris, and Gracie sat across the room with another group. Gracie's friends giggled and looked over at Meg repeatedly in a way that made her heart sink. By the time her last afternoon class ended, with Gracie sitting icily across the aisle, Meg could hardly wait to get home. It might not be the most cheerful place in the world, but no one hated her there. A cheerful whistling greeted her as she opened the apartment door. Meg followed the sound to the kitchen and found Bill sitting at the table. He was looking with a pleased expression at the papers spread in front of him. "Hi there!" He leaned back, tipping his chair at a dangerous angle. "How was your day? As if I had to ask." "Awful," she told him. "Gracie's still mad?" Meg nodded. Bill hadn't asked any questions last night when she came back from the meeting with Gracie. He waited now, but Meg said nothing. He turned to another subject. "I'm filling out my application for the university," he announced. "Next fall you can come to Madison and we'll take in a football game or two." Meg forgot all about her bad day. "You've changed your mind about not going to school," she exclaimed. "Oh, I'm so glad. Does Mama know? Was it what Rhoda said that made you decide?" "I'll tell Ma tonight. And yes, I think it was Rhoda who got me thinking. She was right. I just wanted to get even with Dad for going away. I hate to admit it," he added teasingly. "But she's pretty smart for a little kid. And for a girl." Meg dropped in a chair and stuck out her tongue at him. "We women are going to take over the world," she drawled. "You're going to need all the education you can get." "Right." He was suddenly serious. "You know, all day yesterday I went over the whole thing in my mind. Dad leaving and how I felt about it. All that. It's a real pain, but I finally decided it isn't the end of the world. He has his life to live. I have mine. And I have better things to do with it than get even." Meg listened intently. She wanted to understand this. She wanted to let Bill's words carry her up and out of the gray world she'd been living in since her father left. "But he shouldn't have gone," she protested. "How can you forgive him for that? I can't." Bill looked thoughtful. "I guess I can't either," he said. "But he's gone, and from now on that's going to be his problem, not mine." "Do you still love him?" Meg asked. "Do you miss him?" Bill's face tensed. "I can't stop loving him because he's done something dumb," he said slowly. "But I can't change what he's done either." Later, while Meg washed greens for salad and peeled potatoes, she thought about what Bill had said. From time to time she looked at him, hunched over the forms on the table. "He's a good person," she thought, "like Rhoda. Better than I am. I'm just full of meanness." That evening, when her homework was completed, she took out her box of stationery. She wrote quickly before she could change her mind. "Dear Dad, last night I dreamed about a little red rowboat in the water. It was empty, and one of the oars was floating away. I didn't actually see you in the dream, but I was pretty sure you'd been in the boat and had fallen out. Do you remember that time I dreamed about the burning house just before the Pansino's Christmas tree caught fire? You said then I shouldn't talk about my dreams, so I never have. But I want you to know about this one. Sometimes my dreams do come true. Please be careful. Your daughter, Meg." Meg read it over carefully. It didn't sound especially friendly, but it wasn't unfriendly either. She sighed. She couldn't be like Bill just by wishing it, but maybe the letter was a step in the right direction. That's the end of chapter 13. And that wasn't so bad. Bill is going back to the university, filling out the application. Oh, thank goodness he's given up the job at the other place that he was going to apply for. Well, until we see each other for chapter 14, Grammie says ta-ta for now.